Welcome to the Wine Centric Show, where we talk to the titans of the wine business and make it relatable for everybody. I am so happy to introduce my first in-studio guest. This man is a maverick. He is setting the world of wine on fire by his new import model and the company that he leads and founded in 1990. It's called Dalla Terra Winery Direct. This man is a sailor. This man is a winemaker, a wine importer, and on and on and on. You'll get to find out in the rest of this episode. Welcome, Mr. Brian Larky.
Grazie mille. È veramente un piacere di essere qui con voi oggi. And this inaugural in studio. I had to put a clean shirt on for this one.
I know. I made you put a clean shirt on. Prego. Also speaks Italian. Let's get right into it. You don't have a lot of time. Talk to me about why Dalla Terra Winery Direct was such a revolutionary model in the wine world.
So Dalla Terra means of the earth, Dalla Terra. And it's Italian wording, and everything we focus on is Italy. So it's Italian wines, Italian spirits, and we think of ourselves as ambassadors for the entire country.
Yeah.
So from the Alps all the way down to Sicily, from the east to the west, we are interested in the entire country and the people and the indigenous varietals that come from these different areas. Dalla Terra was formed in my head in the kind of the mid 80s. And I was working in Napa Valley. I graduated from UC Davis, got an invitation to go have some experiences in Italy, and went out there and worked for Ca del Bosco in Franciacorta, northern Italy, making sparkling and still wines. And I saw how Ca del Bosco wines were imported. I was looking at different ideas, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart, and I got lucky in terms of the idea, how it kind of hit the market at the time. And so the idea with Winery Direct is we sell directly to the importers in the U.S., which in most cases are also our distributors, importer-distributors. So we eliminate a national importer, essentially, and we work directly with each winery, and we work with wineries that, for the most part, don't overlap. So if we're going to work with an estate, for the most part, they represent for us one of the apexes, one of the pinnacles of that growing region. And so everything that we do is direct. Our relationships are very transparent. And we're very, very proud of the families that we work with and the long-term relationships. I mean, this is 35 years, and to still be relevant after 35 years, I think says a lot, both for the producers that we work for the business model. The idea is to cut out as much, grasso, as much fat out of the system as we can, and be able to work directly in each market throughout the United States.
So let's unpack a bunch of what you said there. First, you're a graduate of UC Davis. It's one of the most highly regarded enology wine schools in the world. It's definitely number one in the U.S., probably number one in the world. We have people from all over going to learn how to make wine or perfect their winemaking skills there. Second, you mentioned Ca del Bosco. Ca del Bosco is a winery that makes only sparkling wine in Franciacorta. Think the champagne of Italy, because they make it in that traditional style.
And still wines, yeah.
And they do make still wines.
Cabernet,
Zanella. We don't see much of their still wines.
It's a big part of kind of the idea of what they started working with and the overall philosophy of the estate. But you're right, it was a founding member in Franciacorta.
Yeah. So Franciacorta, if you don't know it, familiarize yourself with it. It's delicious sparkling wine. And then the other thing, which I think is really important, in the United States, we have a traditional 3-tier system, what's called. So you have the wine coming from the winery, you have it then going to an importer, which brings it into this country, and then the importer either is a distributor or wholesaler, or they're also then selling to a wholesaler or distributor. Then it gets to a retailer or a restaurant. Then you, the end consumer, buys that. And you, to simplify, you circumvented essentially 2 of those tiers, or really one main one
really
of those
one,
tiers.
Yeah, really the national importer. So instead of, we took kind of a bite out of that piece, skipping that and selling directly from the winery to each of the individual importers / distributors.
Yeah.
And in a sense, we're trying to get, the wineries are able to make a little more money with us. The distributors are making a little more money with us, and the consumer is able to pay a little less by doing that. And It gives us really good national control over the distribution because in the end, we're representing families. We're telling stories. We're representing families. And it's one of our greatest joys in life is to be able to go ahead and build these organizations that can do that.
Yeah, your reputation, and I got to know you over these last 2 days because you brought Dalla Terra Winery Direct brought, 20 different of your winemaking supplier teams to Raleigh, North Carolina to taste with the wholesale staff and some of the great restaurants and shops around here. And what a great time we had, an amazing entree into your people and the families. And you could see the relationships are genuine and special. What I'm always after is, how does Dalla Terra make money on this? Is it working like a broker model where the wineries are then paying you based on depletions? How does that work?
Well, is there going to be the GoFundMe little thing at the bottom of this
No,
podcast?
those go to me. I'm not worried. You have a Cessna. I'm not worried about you.
Well, the model is basically work on a commission, which is very interesting. For those who are interested in the kind of the economics of this, there's really 3 ways to do business. One, you can be a winery, walk around, knock on doors, and try and sell your stuff directly in this country. Some do that. The other one is you can sell to a national importer, and they deal with it on a national basis.
Yeah. They then take care of all the marketing and all the sales.
Exactly.
Stuff. Yeah.
And they tend to buy at a lower price. They handle all the stuff in the middle, and they sell at a higher price. And we are a hybrid model, and so we work on a 100% commission. And so our commission goes up and down depending on the price. I mean, the commission's fixed, and it's the same for all the wineries. Everyone's in the same boat. But the interesting thing is that we're completely aligned with the estates. So if the wineries want to raise their pricing, our commission will go up. If we're lowering pricing, our commission will go down commensurate with the winery's earnings. And so when we make proposal to the winery, here's the price that we think it should be, here's why, we already know that we're fully aligned.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, we need a lower price on this. We actually want everyone to be fairly compensated all the way through the process, but it also has to be sustainable, not just sustainable in the vineyards that people talk a lot about, but sustainable from an economic perspective. And that's why after 35 years, wineries, it's a very clean, beautiful model. And so far, basically almost nobody's gone ahead and done this. We're very transparent, dallaterra.com. You can take a look at the model.
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult thing to create today because the margins are lower. So you need to kind of it's almost a catch-22 where you can't really get the producers you need without the distribution. And you can't really get the distribution without the producers.
Yeah. But you have those long-standing, long-term relationships. And you worked. So let's color in more of your history. And by the way, we have to talk about your father in a second. So I'm going to make time for that. But like we said, you went to UC Davis, so you had the winemaking chops. Then you worked at Farniente, a very well-known Chardonnay and Cabernet house in Napa Valley. Right. And then you got invited to Ca del Bosco. When you worked at Ca del Bosco, you said you started out as like a cellar intern or something like that, and worked your way up to being the chef de cave, meaning the main dude. And while you were there, not only did you work in Italy, learn in Italy, but the head chef de cave was second, third generation chef du cave of Dom Perignon, arguably the most famous champagne house in the world.
Both he and his father before him. It was just a rare opportunity. Maurizio Zanella Ca del Bosco gave me every opportunity. And it was an amazing existence. It was basically the time that the world was looking at Italy, not just as red and white tablecloths and spaghetti, but as, a whole nother genre that began to grow. So Italy was growing in the eyes of the world. America was falling in love with Italy, with Italian food, with Italian fashion, with Italian eyeglasses and the shoes and the special lighting. Everyone loved Italy. Yeah. And we were there. I was there at that exact kind of transition moment, beginning in 85 when things really began to blossom. And the winemaking, the attention to detail, and the fact that the Chef du Cave from Dom Perignon was at Ca del Bosco was an extraordinary experience, and got to overlap with Monsieur André Dubois. And then he retired back to Epernay, and I had an opportunity to continue. And the gentleman who was working with me at the time, Stefano Capelli, is still there today. Consistency, excellence. It was just It doesn't really get better than that. And it lined me up for both Italy from a production point, but also it was a great introductory point for meeting like-minded, similar quality estates throughout Italy. It's a small group, and you get introductions like that. You meet people over years, and many of these relationships are still relationships that continue today.
Very evident. The other thing Italians love, they love their coffee.
They do love their coffee.
I want to take a moment because I'm going to give you a gift. I know you have a flight to catch. I'm going to give you some coffee. This is called the Tastemaker Series. This is from a local roastery called Carborough Coffee Roasters. They have, check this out, Brian, they have 2 of the 100 cuppers that exist in the world. Cuppers are the equivalent to a sommelier, but like there's only 100 in the world. They have 2 right here in Carborough. And we got together and I picked out this single origin coffee from Peru from a farmer named Edith Mesa, who does this original natural process of her coffee. It's a Pacamara blend cultivar. So I'm going to give you this, and then you're going to bring it back to your hometown and enjoy it. Yeah.
I think this is going to be the official coffee of the Vatican with the American / Peruvian. Well, he's Peruvian. I mean,
that's right.
20 years in Peru. So this will be a wonderful, very timely for today's news.
I should have let you do the segue.
Beautiful. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Enjoy it. A celebration of the magical pairing prowess of sparkling wine and barbecue. I got together 12 of my favorite chefs and pitmasters. They're doing their favorite dish of barbecue, and I'm pairing it with 20 different sparkling wines from around the world. It's at Fenton, which is an epic location. It is Cary, North Carolina's premier food and dining venue. On Saturday, May 31st from 12 to 4, get your tickets. Thank you to Cary and Wake Living Magazine and Raleigh Wine Shop and Heather Donovan Realty and Luella Wine Shop for sponsoring this event. It's going to be a serious party. Also, Andre Mack of Bon Appetit's World of Wine is coming down to do 2 mini master classes. It is included within your ticket. Adrian Miller, the soul food scholar, is also going to be there doing 2 mini master classes on the history and the cultural significance of barbecue. See you at Barbecue and Bubbly on May 31st. Follow the bit.ly link. It's bit.ly/BBQ Bubbly. See you on May 31st. Sometimes, yes, it's right place, right time, but it's obviously, and sometimes it's lucky, but you clearly worked hard, worked your way up, had this knack for really getting the tone of the people and immersing yourself in that. And I have to imagine, maybe I'm wrong, but your father has had a big impact on you. So he basically invented the color television. Is that right?
Oh, you bought that? Yeah. We tell people that.
Okay.
It just gets their attention.
I bought a hook, line, and sinker.
He did. He swallowed that whole thing. No, Dad was an amazing engineer. He passed away a few years ago. And just a man at the right place at the right time who had the vision. He said, why can't we do this in color? And he graduated. He was out of Princeton and moved on to RCA and different opportunities, worked in Europe, came back and began to figure out how to transmit color. So the color bars, he's got 13 patents just for color television. So I don't really need to work anymore. It's just something I really enjoy doing. Now, when you do that, all the intellectual property is owned by the company that you designed that for. So in this case, it was RCA, but it was an amazing experience to grow up with that. And as you know, we had black and white TV until well into the 70s into the 80s almost, because it's like the shoemaker's kids have no shoes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They couldn't even RCA couldn't give you a freaking color television, man?
It's just Dad was always tinkering on stuff.
Yeah.
Always tinkering on stuff.
Oh, I'm not sure exactly how that relates to wine, but I think maybe into
it's an innovative spirit, right?
Exactly, the innovative spirit, the creativity. Let's bring it full circle to today. So you moved back in 1990, you started Dalla Terra. What do you think? And by the way, the other thing, and you can see some of these soldiers of your wineries all along here that grace your portfolio. I'll also give you a shout out because the people who work for you at Dalla Terra or who are in your organization are super knowledgeable. They're good people and friendly and really intimately knowledgeable about your product. So that also helps. How did you go about when you were starting out selecting the wineries that you decided to bring into the portfolio?
I mean, everything, whether it's from the producer side or from the Dalla Terra organizational side, comes down to one word. And for us, that word is culture.
Yeah.
So what kind of a mindset, what kind of a culture, what are we building and creating on our own, literally from scratch? And what are we inheriting in terms of the culture of the families that we work with? Because these are families, and each one has a history. We're not here to bend them and shift them. We're just here to adopt them and understand them. But it really comes down to like-minded cultural mindsets, basically. And so for the wineries, what we're looking for is that these wineries are considered by their peers to be some of the best producers in a given region. And it's a bespoke collection, let's say, of similar quality-oriented estates. And it's important to us that these estates have a legacy, that these estates have a kind of a map forward in terms of the type of wines that they're producing.
Yeah.
And we're not arrogant to say they're the best. They're not the best. They're among some of the best. And the people that we work for in some cases are 3, 4, 5 generations. I mean, some of these things go way, 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 way back. And some are new. Some are first generation. But each one tells an important story as we're piecing together this patchwork that together is Italy.
What do you think that if you're giving somebody an elevator pitch on Dalla Terra, and I know you know, it's like you can't choose between your children, but like what wines would you go to as an exemplary part of the portfolio?
You're right. I'm not even going to start picking out kids. That doesn't happen. We love all of our babies. And every baby is there for a reason.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we're looking for estates that not necessarily have the longest history, but have the longest trajectory forward. We're looking for producers that have a generational plan and a generational identity and pathway where, you know, everything's in transition. The weather's in transition. The market is certainly in transition today,
Sure is.
especially for imports. And so what kind of a mindset is going to be able to handle all these different things that are going on and continue to make wise decisions that are going to keep these wineries where they are, and at the same time, just like Dalla Terra, that are going to change. And I think the word here would probably be evolution. They need to evolve, both for the weather, both for the climate. Everything's changing, and as well as for the marketplace. How do we all stay relevant moving forward? And we don't currently have wineries from every region in Italy. We'll probably eventually be able to, you know, plug in some of those gaps. But for the most part, we're looking for like-minded individuals that have a vision.
Okay. What was the first winery?
The first winery that really got me off the ground was Ca del Bosco.
Okay.
And it was their idea. They said, you know, if we're going to change, would you work with us, and then we'll build a portfolio. The second most important winery that is still with us today is the Alois Legator Winery. Mm-hmm. And that winery is really the one that helped launch Dalla Terra in terms of not just the solidity and the number of bottles, because we built up quite a bit since 35 years ago, but it was the reputation of the estate and the attention to detail. And Alois himself is a man of precision and a man of principles. Those two P words.
Yeah.
And I think other wineries looked at that and said, "Wow, if he's in your portfolio, it says a lot about you."
Yeah.
Marchese di Grezi, Marco Faluga, and later Roberto Faluga, and now his daughter Ilaria Faluga, who
will be on a future episode.
She would be an amazing. If you can get her in studio, she would be amazing.
I'm going to try.
You do that. So those are some of the early players.
And Legator. So let's dive into that, because, you know, if you don't know, that's a really important winery to talk about. They are one of the flagship wineries of Alto Adige, and making beautiful Pinot Grigio. They're making Pinot Noir and Schiava, which, you know, I think as we get into this, on last episode, Dan Petrosky, who studied in Friuli and made wine there, was talking about the new trend of chillable reds. So you talk about Schiava.
For a guy who only makes whites.
For a guy who only makes whites, yeah. You talk about, I mean, everybody's got their ironies, but Schiava, I think, is one of those varietals that people sleep on that nobody ever know. It's kind of like a thin-skinned varietal, like Pinot Noir, similar to that. Cool climate, not big tannin, but juicy, chillable red. I highly recommend getting your hands on.
They're not really rosés, but like Barrico di Bologna is
could
making
be.
this Ciliegiolo.
Yeah.
Called Chill, like Ciliegiolo, but it's actually from the word ciliegio, meaning cherries. But yeah, more and more wineries are looking for cooler, less alcoholic, easier wines for everyday drinking. Let me put it that way.
I think that's on the pulse of it. So we do have all of this changes going on with the business, with looming tariffs and these things. How does Dalla Terra adjust and still be relevant, still make their margins in this ever-changing world?
I don't even think that tariffs are looming. I think they're here.
They're here, yeah.
And we haven't yet seen them.
They could change, right? We don't know.
They could change. So this is being shot in early May, and the wines haven't really hit the market yet. And most importers work with 60 to 90 days worth of inventory. So the tariff part hasn't really hit yet. The future with this administration appears to be that these very well may be in place. We're going to assume that they're going to be in place. We don't think that we and other European producers are going to be able to hold our breath for another, for 2 years to get through this. So prices will be going up based on tariffs. And also there's been an exchange rate change since the new administration took over. So, our European partners, they are our partners. They're losing a little bit for the exchange rate, maybe 6% today. And then we have a 10% tariff that's tacked onto that. So the 10% looks like it will continue. We're assuming it will. Maybe it goes up, maybe it doesn't. But all we can do is kind of pick something until it shifts and run with that. So I think for Americans, for those of you who are interested in continuing to drink European wines, prices will be going up. And we're already seeing that in some markets. And I think by the time July and August roll around, we'll be well into those some of those price changes, and that's, at least in this case, that's part of the cost of doing business.
Yeah, its silver lining is we've been there before, right? This also happened in 2016, and actually there was 20% at that point, and we found a way to mitigate. Wine drinking society as a whole adjusted. And so now we have somewhat of, at least I'm thinking this, of a roadmap to how to deal with this and how to deal with how you deal with your distribution partners and your winery partners and try to keep everybody happy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the approach, the feeling this lap around is a little bit different than it was earlier. I think folks assume that this is going to probably continue for a while. They're not going to be able, I think, to hold pricing initially. And this also affects all of Europe. Before, it was more segmented into the countries that were affected and types of wines that were affected versus were not. This is just a blanket tariff across the entire continent, not just wines, but EU products in general. So, whether it's your shirt from the EU or your shoes or your glasses from Italy or whatever it happens to be, everything's going to go up. And I think Americans are just going to see that. And a rising tide lifts all ships, and I think that this tide is going to lift all prices for the at least the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and
we are not going to make a dime more out of this. Prices are going to go up. Folks like us, the importers, et cetera, distributors, we're still working on the same exact margins.
Yeah,
and then the tariff is tacked up on top of that. It is what it is, and I think folks will decide to buy into it, pay a little bit more for what they enjoy.
Obviously, the scary part is, well, because the higher prices, do people start buying less, and then you make less commission. So for your part, that's scary. But
that hadn't really dawned on me. Thank you for bringing that up, and so much for my weekend. But no,
you're sorry for your. Well, yeah,
you're absolutely right. And we'll see how that shakes out.
By the way, you keep bringing up Italian glasses. Are these Italian eyeglasses that I'm wearing? I don't think so. You're finding out.
You just look sharp.
The last question, and I'm going to get you out of here. What do you think? How do you translate the knowledge that you have, these personal relationships, the knowledgeable staff you have, to people that are the gatekeepers that we say in the wine business, right? The heady wine shops, the sommeliers who are running, major wine programs or beverage directors. How did you get that kind of, because there's an aura, a connotation. If you're buying Dalla Terra wines, that they're coming from really good estates that are one of the most important wineries, as you said, of their regions. How do you convey that?
It takes time. Just like if you got a brand new winery, how long until you're considered one of the one of the best. It takes a long time. It takes repetitive messaging. It takes repetitive performance year after year. So 35 years is enough time for us to kind of get that message across. In addition, you mentioned earlier today the tour that we're doing. We're doing a week-long tour in the States. We spent a lot of time bringing our producers to the United States. We spent a lot of time dealing with the gatekeepers, dealing with the people that kind of have their hands on the valve that are opening and closing these pipelines, bringing bottles into the United States. A lot of wine today is personal. It's a personal journey. It's a personal story. It's a personal connection. It's not the most efficient way. It's funny, on some side they're saying, oh, we're organic, we're biodynamic, we're very concerned for the environment, but we're all getting on airplanes. We're flying all over the place. And
says the pilot.
Says the pilot. Yeah, we're flying all over the place to share the message, to tell the story, to spread the word. And at the same time, we're bringing Americans to Italy. So we're bringing our producers here. We're bringing some of the key decision makers back to Italy. And it's really a matter of literally crossing the Atlantic, meeting the people, pressing the flesh, hearing the stories, tasting the wine in situ, having someone explain to you their story. Why are these wines different? What's the story of your family? How did this evolve? How did this begin? We all want to have a sense of connection. And I think that our producers are some of the best at sharing these connections and having some wines that are visceral in the way that people they're recognizable. They speak specifically of their region, but they're also approachable from a national perspective in the United States. They're wines that cross over across cultural boundaries. And that's really what a lot of this is. It's this quid pro quo, this exchange of ideas and flavors and foods. We've got so many Italian restaurants and food in the United States. That's another way that we're able to bring this across. Wine shops are key, but what kind of foods do these go with? And who are the people that are our individual agents, the individual folks that are sharing these ideas and introducing people to them? And we have that across the United States in terms of our clients and our customer base. And everybody loves Italy. Everyone wants to go over there, but they fall in love with something. They bring it back home and they're able to share that. And it's a real treat for us to work with so many talented families that are committed generation after generation to continuing to build and grow what they do and be innovators and leaders in their own individual region, as well as wine growing as a whole globally.
Yeah.
It's a privilege.
That was inspirational. What you're doing is amazing. Thank you for changing the model or having your innovative take on the wine model and bringing these great wines to the U.S. Amen. So, Brian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for bringing a part of Italy to North Carolina and this U.S. tour. By the way, I need to get out to Italy and press the flesh, so you let me know when where my ticket is. Bravo. And I will say, for all you out there,
we have to change this to Vino Centric.
Vino Centric, yes, for this one. But Joe, our producer, would do that. So for all of you out there, when you're in your local wine shop, because you're all shopping in your local wine shops, look on the back of the bottle, see Dalla Terra on that. You know you will drink deliciously.
Much appreciated. Grazie mille.
Grazie mille.